So what's MERN? What does MERN stand for? The M stands for MongoDB, and that is a database solution. The E stands for Express. I'll come back to what this is in a second. The R stands for React.js, and this is a browser-side JavaScript library that helps us build amazing user interfaces. And the N stands for Node.js. This is a server-side JavaScript runtime, an environment where JavaScript code can be executed outside of the browser. And now Express.js is a framework for Node.js, so it in the end makes building Node.js applications easier. Now combined, these technologies form the so-called MERN stack. They work together particularly well, and you can build amazing full-stack web applications with these four technologies working together. So let's take a closer look at each of these technologies to understand which role it plays exactly in that tech stack. So what's React? React is a client-side, so on the browser, library which allows you to build highly reactive user interfaces. So it's all about building user interfaces. With React, you write JavaScript code that will be executed in the browser. And since it runs there, it is responsible for controlling what the user sees on the screen and how things there change when a button is clicked, when something is entered into an input box. It's really all about that. It's about rendering a user interface with dynamic data and about updating it when data changes or when certain events occur. It's about handling user input and providing feedback to the user. And it's also, and that is where the other three technologies will come into play, it's also about communicating with backend services. And with backend, I mean services or technologies that don't run in the browser of your user. So React, so to say, is the front end. The other three technologies, Node, Express, and MongoDB, together make up the backend. Now we use libraries like React, and there are alternatives like Angular, with which you would have the MERN stack instead of the MERN stack, which do the same. But we use such technologies to provide users with a mobile app-like user experience, where everything happens instantly, where we have a great reactivity, where things on the user interface really feel great and instant, and we simply provide a really awesome and amazing user experience. Now what about the other technologies? What is Node exactly? It's a JavaScript runtime typically used or often used to create server-side JavaScript applications. Now, technically, that's not the only thing you can use it for, but it is one of the most prominent use cases and scenarios. You can use Node.js to execute JavaScript outside of the browser. And since it runs outside of the browser, you can, for example, use it to create a web server with it. So to run it on some machine which is exposed to the internet, which then accepts requests and sends back responses. So we can then use JavaScript as a server-side programming language, as an alternative to PHP, ASP.NET, Java, and so on, basically. With Node.js, we can listen to requests and send back responses. We can execute server-side logic, and we can also interact with databases and with files, things we typically don't do in the browser or we can't do in the browser. Since we're not tied to the browser anymore, there are certain things we can't do anymore. For example, interact with the DOM, because there is no DOM, it's running outside of the browser. But there are new things we can do. For example, well, write files or do things like this. And therefore, as I said, it's an alternative to other server-side programming languages. And just like those languages, it's also important to note that it's rarely used standalone. Instead, typically, we use it combined with Express. And Express is a Node.js framework, so we still write Node.js JavaScript code, but we get utility functions and a certain way of structuring and building our applications, so a certain rule set we adhere to basically, which makes building Node.js applications much, much easier. So it's based on Node.js, but gives us new functionalities. It's strictly middleware based, and you will learn what that means throughout the course, which means we have a clear way of handling requests, a clear funnel through which all requests are passed, where we then can extract data or prepare the response. And in general, With other features like routing, view rendering, and more, we got a lot of tools and clear rules that almost force us to write amazing and really well-working Node.js applications. So it really simplifies the usage of Node.js, and if you know PHP, it's a bit like what Laravel is for PHP, an amazing framework that simplifies the usage of the language. And that leaves us with MongoDB. What is MongoDB about? MongoDB is a NoSQL database engine which allows us to store documents in so-called collections instead of records in tables as we would have it in SQL. So it's a database engine. It's all about storing data. It's about storing our application data specifically. We use MongoDB in this course and in general to store, for example, our users, our products, or whatever our application is about. Unlike SQL, it doesn't enforce a schema for our data. We can still build one and use one if we want to, but we're not forced to. And we also don't need to work with relations. We can still set up kind of relations, but it's all a lot looser than it is in SQL. You're not forced to do these things. And this is the case on purpose, of course, because it also gives you many advantages. For example, NoSQL databases like MongoDB often give you amazing performance because they're way more flexible. It's also very easy to connect it to Node and Express, because as you will see throughout this course, writing queries against MongoDB is really straightforward and super easy when working with JavaScript anyways. So it's really fun and easy to use MongoDB in JavaScript applications. Now, for security reasons, as you will also learn throughout this course, we don't connect to MongoDB directly from inside our React application. Instead, we do that with the help of Node and Express, and that is how we then have all these technologies work together. So it's a powerful database which can easily be integrated into a Node Express environment. Technically, however, you could also swap MongoDB for other database engines. It wouldn't be the MERN stack anymore because, well, our M would be gone. But of course, you could also build an app with React, Node, Express, and some other database. But as I said, MongoDB really works well and is super easy to use.